my March wrap up, and it's wrapped with a bow. What? I decided to wear bows for now for my wrap ups. I haven't worn a bow like legitimately in like a year, like since I left college, because I just had so many bows that like match my like sorority event shirts that I would wear like on purpose for our events, and then I'd wear with like my spirit jerseys or like my pocket tees, because they just were like comfortable with like leggings. But now I'm like adulting and I don't wear bows as much. This is gonna be like super quick because I have like no time, but like I want to tell you what I read. I read 9 books this month, so let's get into it. The first book I don't have with me anymore, and that is the Jane Austen book club by Karen Joy Fowler. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It follows a book club who learn from the Jane Austen books that they read each month and how they learn from each other and love in their life. I talk a lot more about this in my Around the Year in 52 Books wrap up weeks 5 through 8, so I will link that below. The next book I read is the Mindy Kaling book, Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns. I really enjoy this. I actually read her most recent book first and then her first book, and I'm about to read her middle book, so I'm reading it completely out of order, but I'm really enjoying it. It's been a bit since I read this, but I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely made me laugh, definitely made me giggle. It was really cool to see her path of how she became a comedian and how she became a writer and how she adapted to fame. Next, I delved into Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy by Cassandra Clare. I read them each separately rather than in the full like bind up or ebook or audiobook. I have different reviews for all of them, and I'm only counting this as one book, so I added like 9 books to like my Goodreads reading challenge because of this, because I didn't want them to like be like, oh yeah, you're counting like 10 novellas, that doesn't count, so I'm just counting it as one book for like my challenge. I'm probably gonna surpass my challenge, so I'm gonna have to up it up soon. I really did enjoy them, of getting to see characters from the Infernal Devices that we'll see in the last hours, and seeing the wrap up from the end of the Mortal Instruments. Like, it really did hit me when I read like Court of Heavenly Fire, like what happens to Simon at the end, but I just was like, oh, like everything will be fine, so I didn't really dwell on it. Of these, my least favorites were number 2 and number 10. So number 2 is The Lost Hirondale, which talks about why the law is hard, but it is the law, and how Shadowhunters distribute punishment, which is really freaky. They're very medieval. And then the last one, number 10, is Angels Twice Descending, which is the finale. And if you've read these, you know why it's my least favorite, because my fave things happen to my fave, okay? That's all you need to know. And then of these, number 6 was my favorite, Pale Kings and Pale Princes, which talked about the Blackthorns a little bit more. Really the most important one you need to read before Lady Midnight, which I plan to read in April, because I haven't had time. It's just such a big book. I was really glad to actually read these before starting the Dark Artifices series, because I read the Infernal Devices after the Mortal Instruments instead of in the middle, like between book 3 and 4, like when they were published. So I was like really confused. I didn't really understand the whole big deal with Brother Zachariah and Court of Heavenly Fire. I'm like, what does this mean? Who is Tessa Gray? I don't understand. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm reading series and then a series, but I didn't understand the whatever. From now I'm just reading all of Cassandra Clare's books in the order that they're published, so I'll be all caught up. So yeah. In the middle of reading these, I read Passenger by Alexandra Bracken, which is kind of a time travel, nautical, musical, young adult fiction fantasy? I don't know, because it's very musically written. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing all the different settings and different time periods and places within a certain year that you don't really think of. But it just felt a lot like other young adult adventure books or children's adventure books. But I really did enjoy the way it was written. And I think my biggest issue with this book was I could not figure out the typography. I think it's Merriweather is the typeface / font that they use. Like, that just was such a distracting question while reading it, and it was so squished together to make this book shorter. Like, if they just made the pages bigger or longer, but I understand there's like publishing regulations or guidelines. I digress. So I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I probably will pick up the sequel Wayfarer, which is supposed to come out next year, just to kind of see where it all leads, but I'm not as attached to this as I'd really hoped. I had a lot more hopes for this book. The next book I read was The Nightingale by Kristin, which I'll talk more about in my Around the Year in 52 Books wrap up weeks 5 through 8. Okay, I can't do that. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I cried during this book. It's about 2 sisters during World War II in France. It's an adult fiction book. I really enjoyed this, actually. I probably should have given it a 4.5, but you can't do that on Goodreads. If you're definitely like in a World War II mood like I am, like, you should pick up this book. The next book I read, which I mentioned that I would be reading in my last wrap up, was the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab. I have not gotten to Gathering of Shadows yet, so don't talk to me about it. I know there's like a crazy finale, but like there usually is in the middle of a trilogy. I really enjoyed this. I really like the world building. I gave this a 4.75 stars, but I think it's listed as a 5 out of 5. I really like the beginning, but then the action-y sequences I couldn't get into. I don't read action very well because it's hard to figure out like, oh, who's hitting who where and how are they falling, and I can't really imagine those movements, so reading like action sequences has always just been difficult for me. I don't really know how to get over this. Fun fact, when I first saw this book on like booktube/Instagram a couple months ago, I thought that this was like an upside down wizard, like this was his head and this was his hat. But I like the idea of stepping over and like the layers of London. Oh, so what's this book about? This book is about a traveler named Kel who can go between the different layers of 4 universes that are kind of like stacked on top of each other. There's an anomaly where all 4 of these worlds have a town called London in the same place, so they're different in how they use or know about magic. There's gray, red, white London, and then black London where nobody goes there, it is forbidden. Besides being an ambassador between the different worlds, he also kind of smuggles things on the side for a small price, and he accidentally smuggles something that he should not have gotten tied up into, but he does because he likes adventure. It's all about how he handles trying to fix his mistake with some sidekicks and friends with magic, and magic's just really cool, so why wouldn't you want to read this? The next book I read was Kingdom of Ashes by Rhiannon Thomas. This is the sequel to A Wicked Thing, which is a retelling of the Sleeping Beauty story of waking up after the kiss and not liking the world that you're supposed to be in. It's not just happily ever after and true love just because someone told you that's how life should be. It left it open-ended either way. I'm happy if it's a duology, but I wish there will be a third. But I really like this more than A Wicked Thing. A Wicked Thing was a lot more about political intrigue and questions, and this had dragons in it. This book had dragons. I finally just realized that I love dragons, like reading about dragons. Like I just made like a whole like dragons list on my like Goodreads, and it just was a lot more interesting. There was a lot more happening. This was a lot better pace, so I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. They're making it into a TV show called After, so like what happens after the curse and the true love's kiss and whatever, but it's gonna be on Freeform. We know how Freeform adapts things. I haven't filmed a review of this yet, but I think I will do a joint review with A Wicked Thing so I can talk about spoilery stuff, because I haven't seen this book series talked much about on BookTube, and I really liked this one, that it's worth reading A Wicked Thing to get to this book because it's so cool. Dragons! And then finally, I read Salt of the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and it is about 4 teen/young adults in East Prussia during the end of World War II and how they handle an evacuation. So it has alternating point of views. It's hard to get into it first, but I really, really loved it, and I will link my review of this below because I just have a lot to say about this book that I can't fit here. My name's Laura, this has been Bookies and Cookies. I post videos on Sundays and Saturdays with book reviews on Thursdays, and I love each and every one of you. I hope you never forget it, and remember, everything looks better with a bow. Thanks, guys. And then finally, I read Salt of the Sea by Ruta Sepetys. I gave this 5 out of 5.